Is a blessing from God.
You must expect a miracle.
You have the power of choice.
Believe on the Lord Jesus Christ.
Welcome to Life Today Live on this Monday. Good to have you, kicking off a great week of interviews, and I just appreciate everybody that watches, whether live or in the replay. You're always welcome. If you are watching live, chat is open. You're invited to be a part. I'll be checking that and passing along any comments or questions that I think are relevant to today's interview. Today is I enjoy hearing people's stories, and so today's kind of a fun day for me, and I think you'll enjoy it too. I think we learn from other people, sometimes from the mistakes, sometimes from the triumphs, sometimes just from watching them walk through circumstances. I think it's healthy to look and to ask the questions and to say, what have you learned, and maybe learn some of these things so that either we can avoid some things, or we can maybe purposely do some things, or more importantly, as my guest today will share, we can be ready for the circumstances that might come our way. So there's a book, just a new version just came out. It's called The Leftovers, and it is by today's guest, Matt Sayman. This is what it looks like. You can pick it up now wherever books are sold, and it's a story. And you'll notice that the subtitle there says Baylor, Betrayal, and Beyond. Well, what does that mean? We're going to find out. And just disclosure, I got personal ties with Baylor University. Love the school. So this is curious. What was going on down there? Matt, great to have you on Life Today Live.
Thank you so much for having me on.
So I didn't say, right now you're the coach at Grapevine at a private Christian school, Faith Christian, is that the right?
Yep, Grapevine Faith Christian School. Faith
Christian School, which is a great school known here in the DFW area. But you started as an athlete. Take us back to wherever you want, to where you sort of start this story.
Yeah, back in 2000, I was a part of Coach Bliss's first recruiting class at Baylor. And so as a freshman through my junior year, I played for Dave Bliss and really enjoyed it. Had the role that I loved, and played for a team that was on its way to becoming really a successful team and program. And that leads us into that summer before my senior year, when kind of like you mentioned before, being ready, I was not ready for the storm that hit us.
Well, where'd you play? Where'd you go to high school? I'm curious.
I played at the Colony High School for Tommy Thomas.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Okay. So local here, Dallas-Fort Worth area, then down to Baylor. Walk us through what happened.
Friday afternoon, going into my senior year, we were picked to be in the top of the Big 12, which means you're probably going to be in the top 25, and you have a really good chance at playing in the NCAA tournament, which is every college player's dream, is to get to do that. As a freshman, we made it to the NIT, and so I had a taste of postseason, but we were picked to be really good. We had some younger players that were future pros, and we had a lot of talent and some seniors like me that were role players, but had good leadership. And it was a Friday afternoon. I get a call from one of my professors that says, "Matt, what's going on with your team?" And, you play with some knuckleheads over the years. And so I was a friend with this guy, so it wasn't an uncommon question that he was asking. And he said, "No, you need to turn on the TV right now." And sure enough, I saw this story unfold in front of me. And I learned about things right along with everybody else in the country, maybe even in the world, that were paying attention to what was going on in college athletics at the time. And find out, in a 2-month span, that one of my teammates shot and killed one of my other teammates. The coaching staff that I played almost 100 games for, they found out that they were doing a lot of things wrong right in front of me. And I felt a little naive that I didn't see what was happening. And in a span of 2 months, I lost 10 teammates, my entire coaching staff. And going into my senior year, this perfect picture that I had had since I was 9 was completely dismantled and torn apart. And then enter Coach Scott Drew. We have 6 scholarship players, and that senior year was pretty incredible.
Yeah, yeah. I remember the story, obviously, and anybody that follows sports probably remembers that story. How close were you to the players involved?
Well, I kind of say it like this. I wasn't best friends with my teammates those first 3 years. It was more of I would show up to the gym and I would do my work and I'd give my coaches and my teammates my very, very best. But then being on the Baylor campus, I was a Christian and I stood for that. And I had other friends outside of basketball that I would really spend the majority of my time with. Yeah. But you do develop a special relationship with your teammates to where, we're sweating with each other every day. We're battling against each other. We're in the locker room. We're on the bench. We're in, a war in a sense every day with each other. So there is this bond that you have. And to see, obviously to lose Patrick was the biggest tragedy of everything that happened was for his life to end. But then to see Carlton, the guy, involved with that, to go through what he was going through, and then to lose so many teammates for guys not to come back. Yeah. That was a lot of turnover in one summer.
Yeah. Why did you go back?
I was a senior on a team at a university that I loved. I'd seen some 1-year guys come in and out before. 1-year guys, meaning they were coming in for just their senior season, and it typically didn't end well for them. It was hard for them to adjust and to get in the flow and into the rotation. And I did, and I discussed this in the story. I did call one university, one of my best friends that had played on our team years before, went to Davidson. I called that coach and I said, "Listen, sir, I'm going to be a senior. I'm 6'2.5". I average 4.5 points a game, but I hustle really hard and I bring a lot of spirit and I'm very coachable." But I already knew the response was going to be, "Hey, Matt, we don't typically take those guys." And he wasn't mean and said, "Based on your stats and your stature, we're not interested." He didn't say that, but I knew that I was going to be coming back, and thankfully I had 2 other seniors, R.T. Gwynn and Terrence Thomas, that did as well.
Okay, yeah. Did you have pro aspirations at the time?
So when I was 9 years old, I had 3 goals. I was to make my freshman A team, to make varsity as a sophomore, and to get a Division I scholarship to play basketball. And my life dramatically changed at that time where, even though I'd grown up in the faith, basketball really took over my life, took over my family's life. I think a lot of people can relate to that because it doesn't have to just be a sport. It could be a relationship, it could be academics, or it could be your job one day that takes the place of Christ in your life. And, I did not have a goal past my senior year in college. Mm-hmm. And so when everything is put into that and it's ripped away, you really find out where your foundation is at. Yeah,
I can imagine. Where spiritually, you mentioned that you sounds to me like you were fairly grounded in your college days, which, a lot of even guys that grow up in the church go to college and they kind of, wander off a bit. What were you going through spiritually when this hit?
I was saved when I was 5. I was in Cubbies with, my mom was there. I said the prayer, right? I prayed the prayer. But I did grow up. We went to church. My parents did a really good job of giving my sister and I that biblical foundation. We were a Christian home and grew up going to church every Wednesday and every Sunday. And then at Waco in Baylor, I was known for that. I wasn't a partier. I had a good group of friends that we had fun, in our own way. But looking back, I could say I was living a moral lifestyle, a morally good lifestyle. But even near that senior year, I could see some slippage in my habits, and I was starting to, sin, I think, more and more, and make some decisions that weren't good. And then all it took was that summer for things to fall apart, where I really abandoned my faith at that point.
Really? Okay. Walk us through that, because that
Sure.
surprises me. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So when basketball, it was not just fractured, but completely broken. I found myself looking for some type of peace and comfort, and it wasn't in my faith. It wasn't in Christ. And in fact, if you were to open up my chest, I realized that basketball was there instead of this faith that I thought I had. And what happened, I threw myself in the party scene, and the competitive nature that made me and some athletes really good at sports. Man, I became really competitive in that arena as well. And it was incredible. It took about 2 months for me where I used to walk into a party and people would hide their drinks from me because they didn't want me to see them in that way. All of a sudden, I'm the one who's hosting and running those. That one of my biggest regrets is that I think I led a lot of people the wrong direction during that time. And I think that's one of the worst things that we can do is lead people in sin. And I think I did that, I did that. And so the beginning of that senior year, that was kind of where my headspace was. I had this brand new coaching staff. We only have 6 scholarship players and 4 or 5 walk-ons to play against Kansas, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Texas, like the biggest and the best of the best. Coach Drew came in talking about how there's a lot of hope in the future, in the foundation that we're going to set. And I just, for the first time in my life, I couldn't get on board with what my coach was saying.
We're talking to Matt Sayman, and he's walking us through interesting angle on something many of us heard about many years ago. He tells this story in this book, The Leftovers, available where you can get books now. And Matt, so here you go. It's your senior season. One of your former teammates has shot and killed another former teammate under some really, really strange circumstances. I don't want to get into all the details there. It's known, but it was just weird. It was just tragic all around. And now you're left with some guys. I'm guessing that first practice your senior year was not a lot of heads held high. You guys were, as you describe it, the guys left over after everything fell apart. Tell us what happened that year.
Yeah, it was really the first meeting that we had with Coach Drew for the first time. I'm sitting there and just kind of looking around. And again, I had this picture of what our senior was going to be. I was going to be a starter. By the end of my junior year, I had earned a starting role. Loved the role that I had. I wasn't in the media hardly at all. I was kind of a behind the scenes guy, and we were going to be really good. And so I'm looking around, and in my mind, that's the picture I had. And, this is not it. Right. And when basketball started, it was difficult. We weren't very good, and we weren't playing very well. And we were losing to teams that we used to beat badly. In fact, Coach Bliss put these teams on our schedule to build up our record. So we're losing to these teams. I was giving false effort at that time, false effort at some people outside of basketball, or maybe that didn't know me very well, would have thought that I was still playing pretty hard, but it wasn't the level and intensity or even like the authenticity that I used to play with, just giving my very, very best. And it was, to me, you could tell, and my coaches and teammates could tell. There was one game where in the Farrell Center down at Waco, where we were losing to a team by 20. Coach Drew subbed in 5 walk-ons for 5 scholarship players. I think that's the first time at that level of Division I basketball in the middle of a game that 5 walk-ons have ever been inserted. That's just my guess. And they played hard. And they brought a lot of energy, and the crowd, the few thousand that were there, we were not getting good crowds. Right. They appreciated how hard they were playing. Well, scholarship players beat walk-ons, and that started to happen on the floor. And Coach Drew just looked down the bench and he said, you guys better play hard. And he put us back in. And for the first time, I heard a sound in the Farrell Center I'd never heard before, was boos. Our fans were booing.
Wow.
The walk-ons coming out of the game and booing us going back in the game. And we lost. And I was that night, it was just after the game, I'm just in the locker room crying. And ready to quit.
Yeah.
And, I never quit anything in my life. My parents wouldn't let me do that. Even 8th grade swimming, when I did not I did not appreciate the Speedo, and I did not enjoy being in, my mom would not let me quit. And Coach Driscoll, one of our assistant coaches, gave me really good advice. He said, Matt, please just show up tomorrow. I know tonight's hard, but just show up tomorrow. And I think that's a good reminder for all of us when difficulties in our life, like, don't quit, don't do what I did. Don't run from God, run to him when those times are really tough. And so I didn't quit that day. And it ended up being one of the best decisions I've ever made, because at some point in that year, and I'm not saying it's just because I got on board, I'm not that vain or arrogant, but at some point in that year, we did, as a team, start to believe in each other, start to play really hard together, and start to trust our coaches. And that's the part of the story that I love getting to talk about, is the miracle moments that happened from that point on.
Was there something that prompted that, or did guys kind of just finally get on the same page?
Well, we were all so new with each other, so when you see these teams that have a great year, but then reload the next year, bring in so many different pieces, it typically takes them a lot of time to gel. But this was just an extreme version of that. And the fact that none of us were stars coming in. So I'm going from 20 to 22 meaningful minutes each game to now I'm playing 38 minutes. Jeez. And, that to a lot of players, that probably sounds like your dream scenario. But when you're built the way I am, and you're just basically like, athletically, I shouldn't have been playing at that level. 38 minutes is really hard. Sure. And my off-court habits, I wasn't in the best shape I'd ever been. And so that was all tough. And then the fact that, I had been, betrayed a little bit. My faith, I'd always had faith in coaches, and I really believed in Coach Bliss and that staff. And so I was holding back from giving Coach Drew and his staff everything that I could. And I think once all of those things started, we also adopted a mindset that I think is really powerful for teams, which is, if you can make every night your championship game, and here's the one thing I forgot to say, was at the beginning of that year, Baylor and the NCAA told us we couldn't play in postseason, which means hypothetically, if we would have been really, really good, won every game, our season would have been done at the last Big 12 game.
Why?
So because it was just self-sanctions. I mean, there have been so many violations in our program. So instead of the NCAA giving us the death penalty like SMU, the university kind of hammered us, and it been past my year. There were sanctions past my year. So all of that to say, I'm in this situation with these new guys. We can't even play in the postseason if we were good. Why play at all?
Right.
So we were able to adopt this mindset of, let's do something every night that nobody thinks that we can do. Nobody's expecting us to win a game or to even be competitive. So we had this, and that's scary for a team to play against, is if that other team has that, there's nothing for us to lose. Right. So why not just go out and try to do something incredible?
You're right. I mean, that's I'm laughing. It's almost tragic comedy going on here. So what happened? What happened on the court?
First Big 12 game, we go down to Texas, and Texas is a team, one of the few teams I had never beaten in 3 years. And they were just always so good. Rick Barnes at the time was coaching them. That's what I loved about the Big 12 at that time, was there's Hall of Famers basically at every school that you're playing against, and future pros. So it's just an honor to get to be out there with them. And we're playing at Texas. Two of my teammates, 2 scholarship players, were academically ineligible to start. So we've already had all of this stuff happen, and now we're down 2 more. So we go down to Texas with only 5 scholarship players because we had picked up one along the way, and they have 13 All-Americans. Well, we play really hard. We were competitive. We gave our very, very best. And as we're leaving that arena, there are some Texas fans standing in the corner clapping for us, applauding. And I kind of,
Yeah.
turn around to see who are they clapping at. Like, were there Texas guys out there dunking and putting on a show? Because they were obviously fresh. They didn't have to play that much. But nobody was there. And I realized the Texas fans were cheering for us. They knew what we had gone through, and they appreciated how hard we played and the fact that we stayed and remained. In moments like that, like that's a win. In a season where we couldn't find a lot of success, that's success. Iowa State came to our gym a few days later and we beat them. Terrence Thomas, if anybody reads the story, Terrence Thomas is the hero of the book. He was my teammate that he viewed everything that happened and took it and made himself better because of it. I became angry and bitter. And it's a great example of your choice and how you view the attitude you choose to have towards adversity. He chose the right path and he became better for it. He went in and there's a 0 on our board because that's how many Big 12 games we were supposed to win. And he erased it and he threw a 1 and we're spraying water. We were spraying water before it became cool to spray water after games. And we beat A&M twice that year. And their coach was fired the day after we beat them the second time, because the worst thing you can do is lose to us twice. And even Texas Tech, we're at their arena with Bobby Knight as their coach, and we're up 4 at halftime, but we lose because we got tired. We're down 4 with 10 minutes left at Kansas. And then my very last game at Oklahoma State, we're up 14 at half. We lost all those games because we just ran out of gas and they had more talent. But to be even competitive in those games was incredible.
From a purely, sports commentator fan, the things you're saying, okay, so yeah, you were up, but you lost. Okay, well, you were close, but you lost. That would look like a lot of just losses. But you're saying that, no, something else was going on. What are the biggest lessons? Well, 2 questions. I mean, I want to get into some of the lessons that you apply, because these have carried you since then.
Sure.
But I'm curious, was there a moment where you kind of came out of your funk and your disillusionment with God, and realized, no, okay, I can't go by what my eyes see, but there's something deeper going on here? So
that's a great question. I kind of lumped basketball and God together growing up. If you're on board with my plan, then you'll make it happen the way that I want. And it seemed to be that way. So this kind of false theology of God as my genie was I was creating that. So there's 2 paths here. When basketball fell apart, I ran to this scene and developed these bad habits to find some peace. And I really took control of my joy at that point. I thought that I was just doing it to get by until basketball was better. Wow. All of a sudden, basketball gets better. And it was the Purdue game, actually. The game before Big 12 started, we were playing number 22 Purdue. They had beat Duke, who was ranked 1st in the country earlier that year. So, okay, we're the leftovers. 22 Purdue is coming into Waco. And we were down 3 with a minute and a half left. And I'm at the free throw line looking across at their bench, and their guys are locking arms with each other, which you only do that if you're nervous that you're going to lose. And I remember thinking, are you kidding me? Like, we got a shot. Though that kind of started this idea of, hey, we can do some things that people won't expect. And Coach Drew's idea of building a foundation, being a part of future success. Sometimes that's hard to hear as a player because you want success for yourself. Sure. But there is something about I'm a part of something way bigger. And, I think we'll get to what happened last year, because that came true, being a part of something way bigger. But the interesting thing was when basketball became better, my off-court habits remained. So basketball ends. I did go play in Iceland for a year. And it was the only place in the world that would have me play for them was in Iceland. And my first practice over there, a guy asked me where I played, and I said Baylor. And in my head, I'm thinking, that's Big 12. You guys probably haven't seen anything like me, And he looked at me with kind of a puzzled look, and he goes, "Don't they kill people there?" And so the story that I was a part of followed me all the way across the ocean, but so did my bad habits. Wow. And in fact, my pro career ended. I was playing really well, but my pro career ended because of the off-court habits that I had there. They asked me to leave. Wow. I came back, and I was a 22-year-old, frustrated, angry, bitter, and I was doing anything but run to God or ask for his forgiveness, ask for his guidance through this. I was doing anything but that. About 9 years go by of just broken relationships. And
wow. Are you there? Your audio just dropped. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? No, I can't hear you. Check your audio. I'll show people the book while you're checking your audio. This is The Leftovers by Matt Sayman, and as you've been listening, you know, man, this is an incredible story. And I'm trying to get Matt back. Hey, live TV people. I don't know. Try disconnecting and reconnecting to Zoom. Yeah, I got the Zoom message saying your microphone's not working. Try disconnecting and reconnecting on Zoom, and we'll finish this story. As we all wait with bated breath, am I right? All right, talk to me. I can hear you on my speaker, on my laptop, which is completely unusual because that's not the way it's routed. That's right. Hey, I'm going to reconnect on Zoom and see if it'll reroute the right way. All right. So reconnect to this meeting. Sorry, guys. This has never happened. But I want to hear the end of this story. I mean, my goodness. We want to get to, if you're not a basketball fan, we'll get to what I really want to know is how this relates to the success that the Baylor program is having now, all these years later. I can hear you, but the audience cannot. And that is, I've got a technician here trying to figure this out. So he's on Zoom, and
go to your Zoom settings.
Okay.
Your audio settings.
I'm getting some instruction here.
Up top right. Your RR.
Over here?
No, on right there, yeah.
Okay.
Settings.
Right there, obvious.
Now
Appreciate you bearing with me. Go ahead.
Screen is your drag it over here. Audio. Change from speaker to speakers intel to the right. Change that to
Decimeter?
no, it should be
BDI?
Cast 4. Audio got disconnected. Maybe to headphones. And it'll come up on a different channel on your mixer.
Okay. Check 1, 2. Matt, can you talk?
Yep, I can hear you.
All right, I can hear him. Did it give any signal? Keep talking for me.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay,
I can hear you
back.
fine.
Are you hearing feedback?
Yeah, I can hear. It almost sounds like it's coming for your computer, like
Yeah.
in the mic.
It's not. What is he supposed to do with that?
Is he hearing himself?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, not me.
Oh.
I'm just hearing like a background noise on your side.
Oh, okay. He's hearing background noise on my side.
Meaning,
Is it distracting? Can we keep talking?
Oh no, we can keep going.
All right, we're gonna keep
tough.
going.
We can go.
Sorry about that, folks. You will get the end of the story. So 9 years and 9 years later, you after being kicked out of Iceland. Right. No, you can't make this stuff up, right? Pick back up. I'm sorry, where we lost you a second ago.
Yeah, so I'm 30 years old and I'm in my apartment by myself. And I had started coaching at that point at McKinney High School as a varsity assistant. And I just was wondering, like, is this really it? Is this what life is supposed to be like? You know, you're a good person, or you think you're a good person. And, you know, looking back, that was probably my first mistake was that's the trick, right? Or the lie. There are no good people. Like, we're all sinners. And so, but I thought because I was a good person and I tried to live a certain way that God wouldn't allow anything bad to happen to me or to my dream. And when that did, it just sent me on this path. And I walked into a church a couple weeks later that I had never gone to before. And I wrote on a visitor card. And those of you that have gone to church all your life, you never fill out that visitor card. You're like, you're never a visitor.
They're gonna pester you.
That's right. Well, I've always gone to church. I'm not a visitor. So I filled out that card and I said, I'm angry and I have questions. And I put my information down.
Wow.
And a lady emailed me back, and I got in touch with her and got a meeting with the pastor. She opened the door for me that day and let me into the church. And when I sat with him, I basically did what I just did with you, is I told my story and I told him that I didn't understand why life was the way that it was. And he said, Matt, you know, you've got to give up control. And I said, no, listen, I grew up in church, man. Like, I know I got that. Tell me what else I need to do. He said, no, when you're 21 and all those things happen, or maybe even before, you took control of your happiness, your peace, your self-worth, and you became God of your life. And in that moment, I surrendered and I let Christ be Lord of my life. And the change was pretty dramatic. The things that I would have been running to for comfort, I wasn't doing those things anymore. And God put people in my life to even help me even more. That lady that emailed me back and let me into the church, we've actually been married for 9 years now. You know, and so whenever I'm talking with players or students and sharing my story, I'm like, guys, just go to church. You know, you'll find the one. No, but his plans were just so much greater. I mean, mine were to play college basketball, and now kind of looking back and seeing his hand through all of it. It's humbling to be a part of a championship program now. And like Coach Drew said, be a part of the foundation, where at that time, I didn't think what we did mattered at all. But now watching them win a national championship and feeling like a small part of that, it really does make things worth it.
Well, no, I mean, I'm curious about this. How is that related to your story?
The championship. Yeah. Just wondering all that senior year, I really didn't think anybody cared about what we did. Not at all. And I actually thought I didn't go back to Baylor for a few years after because I thought that I was a part of their bad, dark history that they don't want around anymore. That Scott Drew era is here. Let's get past these guys and let's move forward. My first game back, Coach Drew saw me from across the court, and he didn't run, but he walked very fast over to me and gave me the biggest bear hug. Oh, wow. And it made me feel like I'd played for him for 4 years. You know, and over the years, there's been so many moments of validation for what we did mattered, and that in some way we were able to get Baylor to a point quicker than maybe they should have gotten. Like, if you look at the SMU program, it took them 20 plus years to have any type of success. 5 years after my year, we were in the NCAA tournament, and I went down to watch Baylor play Gonzaga in 2008 at American Airlines. And I'm walking down and I see these huge players that Baylor has now, future pros. And I'm like, wow, first of all, I'd be a manager on this team. But Pastor Weibel, the chaplain for Baylor, and he's still there today. He was there when I was there. He put his big old arm around me and he said, Matt, look out at the court. He said, we wouldn't be in this place if not for what you guys did. And it's just been stories like that or comments like that over the years. Coach Drew wins the national championship, And that night he texts not just me, but all of us former players. And he says, you are just as much a part of this as anybody else, and he invites us to the parade down there. Coach Drew did something incredible. He brought together 50, 60 years of Baylor basketball in that, I mean, I looked around, I saw players from the 70s, 80s, 90s, my years. And we were a fractured program before he came. And so there's a redemption path that our program's gone on, and that I've also been on.
That's amazing. That's amazing. What now as you're coaching young boys at a Christian school, high school, what are you trying to convey to them?
That's a great question. So my first few years of coaching, and before the life change, I was very transactional. You better do this for me or else. If you're not in this to be a college basketball player, you don't bother playing. That was my mentality. And I was an angry coach. I was more like my former head coach than I was Scott Drew. I wasn't coaching like him. And then after Christ changed my life, there's no other way to say it. It was more transformational. Like, guys, we're playing this game, and it is just a game. Our goal is to be our very, very best every single day. But in everything that we're doing, we're going to glorify God with what we do. And my biggest thing, and I still have to remember this, is because that competitive nature, or that nature to please, or that nature to want to get recognition for a game and for coaching or whatever, I still feel that, but it's remembering to keep the main thing the main thing. Like, guys, if basketball is taken away tomorrow, where's your hope? Like, whose are you? Is basketball Lord of your life, or is Christ? Is academics? It's just trying to help them, that anytime that I give them those reminders, I'm just giving myself the exact same reminder.
I love it. Matt, I love what God's done and doing in your life, and we just appreciate you sharing. The book is The Leftovers. It looks like this, and it's available now in an updated format that I think you'll enjoy it. You want to get more of the story? And my goodness, this could be a doorway into someone's life, that sports fan in your life that maybe doesn't want to talk about God. Tell them the background on this book and say, you got to check this out. That'll get their attention. Matt, I appreciate that. Yeah. Is there anything else I missed? Anything you want to say? I appreciate your time.
No, and I just want to thank you and everybody there for just the opportunity to share. It's been awesome.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys hanging out. Be sure to hit share. If you haven't hit follow or subscribe, do that. We got more wonderful interviews lined up for you. So we'll see you next time here on Life Today Live.
Awesome.